Imagine a room so quiet you can hear the hum of a cooling system that hasn't failed in 40 years. On the morning of January 26, 2026, a group of men in sterile suits walked into the Hamioka nuclear power station, not with wrenches or Geiger counters, but with the cold, surgical intent of a forensic team. They weren't looking for a physical leak, they were looking for a ghost in the machine. For decades, the logbooks at Hamioka were a work of art. Every weld, every pressure gauge, every microscopic stress test was recorded with such flawless, unwavering precision it bordered on the divine. To an outsider, this was the ultimate proof of the Japanese shokunin, the master artisan's obsession with perfection. But as the inspectors began to dig into the digital archives, that perfection started to feel unnatural. It was too clean, too quiet. What they found wasn't a simple story of lazy workers or greedy executives taking bribes. It was something much stranger and more haunting. It was a ritual. For 20 years, technicians had been performing a sacrament of data forgery. An imperfect reading wasn't seen as a technical glitch to be fixed. It was treated as a spiritual transgression, a rupture in the facade of national excellence that no one was permitted to acknowledge. So they did what the system demanded. They edited reality to match the manual. They chose a perfect lie over a broken truth to avoid the professional seppuku of admitting failure. But the most chilling part wasn't the forgery itself. It was a reaction from across the sea. When the news reached Seoul, the outrage wasn't just neighborly concern. It was a tremor of recognition. South Korea wasn't just watching a scandal unfold in Japan. They were staring into a mirror, terrified of what might be hidden beneath their own masks of industrial infallibility. We like to think of data as the ultimate objective truth. But at Hamioka, data became a holy veil. And now that the veil has been torn, we have to ask, how much of the modern world is built on cracks we've simply agreed not to see?
That image of the silent room, it really sticks with you, doesn't it? It's so visceral.
It's almost suffocating. And the thing that got me reading the Tokyo Dispatch this morning was the timeline. 40 years without a failure.
Right.
But the forgeries go back 20 years. That means this entire performance of perfection has been running since, what, 2006?
At least. I mean, the inspectors only went back 2 decades because that's the limit of the digital records they could easily parse.
So it could be older.
The culture that allowed it to happen, absolutely. It's rooted in the post-war economic boom. This isn't a new phenomenon.
So that's what I want to dig into. The Dispatch calls this the death of the artisan, which sounds so profound. But when I read the details, part of my brain just says, this is fraud, plain and simple. Why do we need this, this cultural overlay? Yeah. If I lie on a report at my job, I get fired. I don't get to call it a sacrament of corporate harmony.
And that is the absolute core of the issue, and it's why this is so much more than just a few bad apples. If you look at this through a purely Western sort of legalistic lens, you miss the point entirely. The question isn't who broke the rules. The real question is, why did nobody for 20 years say anything?
Because if it was just greed, someone would have talked.
Greed creates whistleblowers. Fear of getting caught creates leaks. But this was held together by something else. Hamioka didn't have a physical failure. It had a cultural one, an existential one.
So let's get into the mechanics. The report focuses on this one figure, the senior maintenance supervisor. The forums are calling him Sato-san.
Right, he's the archetype, the 60-year-old lifer who knows every pipe, every valve in that plant. He's not some rogue agent, he is the system.
And it says he was recalibrating software at night.
That sounds so innocuous, so clean. What was he actually doing? I'm picturing some kind of complex hacking, but that doesn't feel right.
No, it's so much more mundane, and that's what makes it terrifying. The forensic reports give us the workflow.
The plant runs on a SCADA system. Supervisory control and data acquisition. It's basically the plant's nervous system. It gets thousands of readings a second.
Standard stuff for any big industrial site.
Totally standard. And here's the thing about sensors in the real world. They're noisy. A pressure gauge doesn't just read a perfect 100.0. It'll flicker, 99.8, 100.2, 99.9. That's just physics.
There's always a margin of error.
But the regulatory standard from the Nuclear Regulation Authority says the acceptable variance is, let's say, 0.05%.
No, that's an incredibly tight tolerance, especially for a 40-year-old plant.
It's basically impossible to meet consistently. So picture Sato-san. It's 2 in the morning. The plant is quiet. He's at his desk. He runs a standard diagnostic on, say, cooling loop B.
And the numbers come back.
The raw data comes back, and it shows a variance of maybe 0.12%. Now, from an engineering perspective, is the pipe about to burst?
No, it's perfectly safe.
It's totally safe. But from a regulatory perspective, that 0.12 is a 5-alarm fire. It's a failure. a rupture, as the report calls it.
So he has a choice. Log the real number and all hell breaks loose.
If he types 0.12 into that official digital log, an automated alarm goes off. It triggers a level 2 investigation. That means the reactor has to be shut down.
Which is a huge deal.
It's a catastrophic deal. The regional power grid goes down, the company's stock plummets, his boss gets called before a government committee, his entire team loses their annual bonuses, the entire harmony, the water of the organization is shattered.
And it's all because of a number that doesn't even represent a real safety threat.
That's the trap. So what does he do? He doesn't commit a crime in his mind. He performs a duty.
Oh.
He opens a simple piece of middleware, a script really. It's a filter. He pipes the raw, noisy data from the sensor into this program, and the program runs a smoothing algorithm. It just shaves off the peaks and troughs of the data. It's like an audio engineer removing hiss from a recording. That messy, failed 0.12% variance becomes a beautiful, clean, passing 0.04%.
He's photoshopping reality.
In his mind, he is correcting a flawed sensor. He's telling himself, I am the expert. I know this machine is safe. This sensor is just being overly sensitive. My job is to make the data reflect the true state of safety.
He's not a criminal. He's a guardian.
He's a guardian of stability. But, and this is the crucial part, that's an incredibly slippery slope.
Because one day that variance isn't just noise from an old sensor.
One day it's a crack.
And he's still smoothing it out.
This is a textbook case of what the sociologist Diane Vaughan called the normalization of deviance.
Right, from the Challenger space shuttle disaster.
The very same, the O-rings. NASA didn't just wake up one morning and decide to launch a faulty rocket.
It was a slow process.
It was a slow erosion of standards. For years, they'd see minor damage on the O-rings from previous flights and say, well, look, it was damaged, but it didn't blow up. So that means this level of damage is acceptable. They kept moving the goalposts.
Until the goalposts were off the field entirely.
Sato-san started by correcting sensor noise. 5 years in, he's smoothing out data that indicates actual metal fatigue. 15 years in, he's actively ignoring ultrasonic tests showing thinning coolant pipes because the only procedure he knows is to run the script.
And any new engineer who comes in?
A new guy who tries to log the real data would be seen as a troublemaker, as a threat.
Why are you trying to get us all fired? Just run the damn script. This is how we do things here.
You've got it. The deviant behavior becomes the baseline. It becomes the standard operating procedure.
You know, it makes me think about that concept of face. In Japan, it's Tate May. I always thought of it as a kind of, personal pride or avoiding embarrassment.
Like vanity.
But this sounds different. This sounds like face is a structural component of the entire system. It's not about ego. It's about keeping the machine running.
You have to completely disconnect it from the Western idea of individual pride. In this context, this Confucian bureaucratic ethos that you see in both Japan and Korea, face is the lubricant for the entire social and corporate machine.
Okay, so ground that for me. How does face play out in a nuclear plant control room?
Right. Let's say Sato-san decides to be a hero. He reports the flaw. He's not just flagging a technical issue.
He's pointing a finger.
He is implicitly and very publicly accusing the person who designed the maintenance schedule of failure. He's accusing his own mentor, his predecessor, of having missed this for years. He is causing a massive public loss of face for his entire chain of command.
He's disrupting the harmony.
He's shattering it. And in a system built on hierarchy and consensus, being the person who points out the emperor has no clothes is often a bigger crime than being the emperor himself.
So the messenger doesn't just get shot, he gets erased.
It's what they call social death. He wouldn't be seen as a whistleblower hero like in the West. He'd be a pariah, a traitor to the group that has sustained him his entire life.
So the ritual of forgery, this sacrament, as the intro called it, it's a survival strategy.
It's the only rational choice within that system. He's protecting the group's face, his superior's face, and by doing so, he's protecting his own livelihood and his family's place in society.
Which means those logbooks, those perfect, digitally signed, pristine records.
They're not technical documents.
They're works of fiction.
They are aspirational art. They represent the world as the bureaucracy demands it to be. The physical reality of the plant is completely, deliberately decoupled from the official record.
Which is a perfect transition because Sato-san, as you said, is just a symptom.
Yeah.
We have to zoom out to the massive economic structures that create a man like Sato-san.
Right.
This idea of corporate feudalism, keiretsu in Japan and the chaebol in South Korea.
He's a product of his environment, and that environment is the keiretsu.
So break that down. I know the term, but I think for a lot of people, it just sounds like a big Japanese company, like a conglomerate. How is it different from, say, General Electric in its heyday?
It's much, much more interconnected. Think of it less as a single company and more as a convoy of warships sailing together.
Okay.
In the post-war flying geese model of development, you'd have these groups form around a central bank. So you'd have the bank, a steel company, an electronics firm, a shipping line, a construction company.
And they all work together.
They do more than that. They own parts of each other. It's called cross-shareholding. The bank owns 5% of the steel company owns 5% of the shipping line owns 5% of the bank. It's a closed loop.
So they're all financially tied together.
Deeply. And the original idea was that they act as a mutual insurance policy. If the shipping line has a terrible year, the group's bank gives them a loan at a ridiculously low interest rate to keep them afloat. If the steel company has excess capacity, the group's construction firm will place a huge order for steel beams that they don't really need yet.
It's a safety net.
It was. But what started as a safety net has, in the 21st century, become a cage. It stifles competition and efficiency.
So
there's a fascinating longitudinal study from Kobe University that analyzed keiretsu performance against independent firms. And the data is just brutal. It found this massive, persistent outcome aspiration gap.
outcome aspiration gap.
Oh.
That sounds like a polite way of saying we lie to ourselves.
It's corporate delusion, quantified. The group leadership sets an aspiration. The convoy will grow by 5% this year. But the market is what it is, and the actual outcome is a 2% loss.
Now, in a normal market, heads would roll. You'd restructure.
You'd report the loss to shareholders and take your medicine. But in the keiretsu system, you cannot admit the convoy is slowing down. That would be a loss of face for the entire group. It's a sign of weakness.
So they hide it. But how do you hide a multi-billion-dollar loss across an entire group of companies?
You bury it in the supply chain. And that brings us to our second narrative. We're moving from the nuclear plant in Japan to a procurement office at a chaebol in South Korea. But the logic is identical.
This is the story about the high-pressure valve seals.
Right. And our protagonist is a young, sharp, Western-educated procurement officer. Let's call her Minji.
So Minji's job is to buy parts. She gets a shipment of 5,000 valve seals. She does her due diligence, runs the quality control tests.
And they fail. The rubber compound is substandard. It degrades too quickly under pressure and heat. These are not safe.
Okay, that seems like a simple problem to solve. You reject the shipment, you refuse the invoice, you call a new supplier.
In a transparent free market system, yes, that's a 10-minute job.
But not here.
Not here. Because the supplier isn't just some random company she found online. They are a brother company, a subsidiary of the very same chaebol group. The CEO of the supplier might be the group chairman's nephew.
So it's family.
It's family. If she officially rejects that shipment, she's not just returning faulty goods. She is publicly declaring that a member of her own corporate family is a failure.
A huge loss of face.
It triggers a domino effect. If she rejects a shipment, the supplier's quarterly earnings collapse. Their stock price tanks. That weakens the collateral they've posted for loans, which are held by the group's own bank. It sends a shockwave of instability through the entire convoy.
So her boss comes to her desk and says, "What? Oh, just sign the form?"
He probably wouldn't even be that direct. It would be more subtle. He'd say, Minji, we have a 30-year relationship with this supplier. They're going through a difficult time. We must support our family. Let's work with them. Sign the compliance certificate, and I'm sure they'll fix it in the next batch.
They'll fix it next batch. The most dangerous words in engineering.
Absolutely. So she signs. She makes the rational choice within her system. She prioritizes supply chain loyalty over objective technical risk.
And now there are 5,000 faulty valves being installed in power plants, oil refineries, semiconductor fabs.
All across the country. And the paperwork for every single one of them says, passed inspection, grade A.
This creates what the report calls a single-point failure risk. The whole system looks strong, but it's held together by a shared secret, a lie.
It's a beautiful metaphor from one of the analyses. The conglomerate is a giant ship with a perfect, gleaming paint job. But the crew is forbidden from ever mentioning the growing number of holes in the hull because the captain's pride is what's keeping the ship afloat.
But this has to have a real measurable economic cost, right? This isn't just about risk, it's inefficient. You're deliberately overpaying for bad parts to keep your family employed.
That's the economic drag, this system of let's call it relationship-based financing instead of cronyism. It creates what economists call zombie firms.
Zombie.
Companies that are functionally bankrupt, they don't generate enough profit to even cover their debt payments, but they're kept alive, shambling along by these non-market transactions, an intravenous drip of guaranteed contracts and friendly loans from their healthier siblings.
So the strong companies are being bled dry to keep the dead ones walking.
And that's why you see economic stagnation. Why would you innovate? Why would you strive for efficiency? Your biggest customer, your brother company, is forced to buy from you no matter what. It removes all incentive to improve.
It's a much bigger story than one nuclear plant. But I still have to ask, who's making these decisions? It can't just be middle managers like Sada-san and Minji. There has to be someone at the very top pulling the strings.
And now we meet the puppet masters.
It sounds like something out of a spy novel.
It's more of a governance problem. The analysis uses the Hyundai breakup in the early 2000s as a historical blueprint for what's happening now. And at the heart of these, chaebol and keiretsu is an entity that is often called the group chairman's office.
Is that like the board of directors?
That's the insidious part. Often it has no formal legal basis. It's not on any official org chart. The chairman himself might only own a tiny fraction of the stock, maybe 1 or 2%.
So how does he have any power?
He has all the power. He controls the capital allocation and the key personnel decisions across the entire group. He's not a CEO. He's more like a feudal lord. And his chairman's office is his court.
So when you talk about cross-subsidization, he's the one doing it.
He is the puppet master. Let's say the group's shipbuilding division is a cash cow, making billions. But the construction division made a disastrous bet on a real estate project and is bleeding money.
Okay.
The chairman, through his office, will direct the profitable shipyard to invest in a joint venture with the failing construction company, effectively transferring billions of dollars from the healthy company to the zombie.
And the shipyard shareholders just have to accept this.
Their profits are being siphoned off to prop up a failing enterprise for the sake of the chairman's empire, and they have very little recourse. It's the opposite of shareholder value.
But what about all the corporate governance reforms we heard about for decades? Independent boards, audit committees.
Yes, the great reform paradox. This is where that term you asked about comes in. Institutional isomorphism.
Right. Break it down.
It's a concept from sociology. It means organizations in the same field start to look more and more alike over time, not because it's more efficient, but because it makes them look legitimate.
So they're just copying each other's homework.
They are copying the form of Western governance to appease foreign investors without adopting the substance. They created independent boards, they set up audit committees.
But the independent director is the chairman's old college roommate.
Or a retired government minister who owes the chairman a favor. They show up, they drink the complimentary tea, they rubber stamp the chairman's decisions, and they collect a nice check. It's a charade. It's theater.
Which brings us right back to the engineer on the ground. The whole system is a performance. The board is a performance. The supply chain is a performance. The logbooks are a performance. What is it like to be the one person who knows the stage is about to collapse?
That's our third narrative, the ethical zero failure trap. This is based on a testimonial from a mid-career engineer. He calls the official safety inspections kabuki theater.
Kabuki. It's all choreographed, all for show.
He describes the scene. The government inspectors from the NRA arrive. Do they put on hard hats and go look at the turbines?
Yeah.
No. They go to a beautiful conference room with lacquered tables, and for 6 hours, they review the binders, the paperwork.
The culture of the folder. If the paperwork is perfect, the reactor must be safe.
But the bureaucracy cannot compute the messy, complicated reality of a physical power plant. It can only compute whether the forms have been filled out correctly. It inspects the representation of the plant, not the plant itself.
You're checking the menu description instead of tasting the food.
And our engineer knows this. He knows there's a valve on the third level that's been making a weird vibrating sound for weeks. But if he brings it up, he's not helping. He's disrupting the play. He's making everyone look bad.
He's breaking the harmony.
He's making his bosses look incompetent and the inspectors look lazy. So he's trapped in this culture of silence.
And it's more than just being afraid of getting fired, isn't it? It sounds like something deeper is at stake.
It's the fear of committing professional suicide. In these cultures, being the nail that sticks up is the worst thing you can be. You are not a hero for telling the truth. You are the problem. Your honesty becomes an act of treason against the group. The psychological weight of that must be immense.
When your family's social standing, your kid's future, your entire identity is tied to this idea of saying everything is fine. Telling the truth is a radical act.
It's an impossible act. And this entire system, this theater, is held together by one final concept from the analysis. It's called variable coupling.
Okay, another one. Variable coupling. What's that?
Think of an accordion. At the very top, from the government, the policy is tightly coupled. The demand is absolute, inflexible. You will have zero failures. You will have 100% safety.
The command is clear.
But at the bottom, on the plant floor, the physical reality of aging metal and human workers cannot possibly meet that absolute demand. So to prevent the system from breaking, the bottom layer decouples from the top.
They disconnect.
They create a buffer. They engage in what's called symbolic compliance. They give the top what it wants, the perfect reports, the flawless data, the successful drills. It's a performance to satisfy the fantasy of the leadership.
So the top is steering a ship, but the steering wheel isn't actually connected to the rudder.
And they're shouting, hard to port! And the instruments on the bridge all say, turn in hard to port! But the ship is still sailing straight for the iceberg.
What's the enforcement mechanism? What keeps the engineer in line?
It's the one-item veto. In these systems, your performance isn't judged on your average. It's judged on your worst day. You can be profitable for 20 years, but if you have one public safety scandal, one embarrassing failure, you're finished. Your career is over.
So the incentive to hide that one failure, to smooth out that one data point, is almost infinite.
It is an existential imperative. You will do anything to avoid being the source of that one veto.
Which finally brings us full circle, back to the beginning. The geopolitical reaction, Seoul's tremor of recognition.
That's the mirror across the sea. The analysts are calling it projective anxiety.
Is it just that South Korea is worried about fallout from a Japanese plant?
That's the surface reason. The deep reason is that they're looking at Hamioka and seeing themselves.
When they read about the data forgery, the pressure from the top, the culture of face.
They don't see a Japanese problem. They see their own chaebols. They see their own semiconductor industry, their own energy grid, their own shipyards.
They know they're running on the same software.
The same Confucian bureaucratic ethos. So the terrifying thought in Seoul is, if the Japanese shokunin, the global gold standard for quality and precision, are faking it, what on earth are our guys doing?
It shatters the entire myth of their own industrial competence.
And it forces them to confront the realist dilemma. This is the truly terrifying question that no one in government or industry in Tokyo or Seoul wants to publicly ask.
Let's ask it.
What if we actually demanded the truth? Tomorrow morning, we turn on a switch called radical transparency. No more smoothing algorithms, no more zombie firms propped up by family contracts. We look at the actual unvarnished data of every pipe, every loan, every single component. What happened?
Total economic collapse.
The grid would go dark. Half the nuclear plants would have to be shut down for immediate costly repairs. The zombie companies that employ millions would go bankrupt overnight. The stock markets would be wiped out.
So the system as a whole has made a collective unspoken choice.
The system has decided that the small statistical risk of a catastrophic Fukushima-level meltdown is preferable to the absolute certainty of immediate and total economic ruin.
We're literally gambling with nuclear catastrophe to keep the quarterly reports looking good.
We are prioritizing the performance of stability over the reality of safety. That's the fundamental trade-off that has been made.
So what now? The Hamioka scandal is out. There will be investigations, apologies.
The ceremonial bowing on television has already begun.
Is this the moment things change?
No, this is the system's immune response kicking in. It's what the reports call metabolizing the scandal.
Metabolizing, like digesting it.
Exactly. This system has incredible institutional stamina. It will absorb this failure. It will issue apologies. It will form new oversight committees. It will publish 1,000-page reports. It will create a whole new, more robust-looking layer of Tate May.
A new, improved facade.
A more sustainable form of the lie. And then when the cameras are gone, the fundamental pressures will remain. And quietly, someone will turn the smoothing algorithms back on, because the machine has to run.
The alternative is that silent room, but without the hum of the cooling system.
The silence of a dead economy. And that is the one failure the system truly cannot tolerate.
The Japanese system, a masterpiece of inertial resilience, is already engaging in its metabolic response. A new cycle of administrative guidance and ceremonial apologies will be deployed, not to dismantle the old order, but to patch its leaking hull. The goal is not radical transparency, but a more sustainable, less scandal-prone form of Tate May. The greatness and the tragedy of this system is its ability to metabolize its own failures, treating scandal not as a fatal disease, but as a recurring fever in the body politic. The data at Hamioka was fake. The machinery that produced it and that will now labor to contain the fallout is terrifyingly real.